Next, we will look at basic welding joints commonly used in the manufacturing of steel components. The 5 basic weld joint types are butt joints, corner joints, T-joints, lap joints, edge joints. The butt joint is formed when the edges of the members to be joined are in the same plane. Butt joints may be welded on one side or on both sides. A lap joint is formed when one member overlaps the other. Welding may be effected on either side or on both sides. The members of the standard T-joint meet at right angles, and welding may be effected on one or on both sides. A corner joint may comprise edges that are either butted or lapped. Welding may be effected either on the inside or the outside or on both sides. An edge joint is formed where 2 members are joined along adjacent edges. Edge joints are most commonly used in conjunction with thin section material and welded along the edge only. Regardless of the joint type, a welder must always prepare metal edges for welding, and set up the members to be welded in accordance with the welding procedure specifications for that particular task. This preparation and setup, in welding language, is known as fitting up. Joint geometry refers to the shape and dimensions of a fitted-up joint when viewed in cross-section before welding takes place. The preparation of joints most usually involves preparing the edges to a specific shape. The shapes given to members during edge preparation are known as groove profiles or edge preparations. The simplest profile is a square butt or square groove. The edges are square and flat. Depending on metal thickness, a gap is left between the 2 members when fitting up. This gap is called the root gap and is usually set at 2 to 3 millimeters. The inside edges of the root gap that are closest to one another are called the root faces. A square butt set up in this fashion is called an open square butt. An open square butt joint can be used to join metal over 6 millimeters in thickness, provided that welding is applied to both sides. With thinner metal, the square butt is often fitted up with no root gap and is termed a closed square butt. A closed square butt joint, welded on one side only, may be used with metal up to 3 millimeters thick. Thicker metal, up to 5 millimeters in thickness, must, however, be welded on both sides. The next example we see is called a single bevel, sometimes referred to as a chamfer. The edge of one member is shaped or beveled to a specific angle known as the groove angle. This groove profile is often given to metal plate that is over 20 millimeters in thickness. The groove angle is normally 50 degrees. The root gap and the root face are each set to between 2 and 3 millimeters. Welding is done from one side. When used on metal over 20 millimeters and up to 50 millimeters thick, a double bevel would be prepared. The groove angles would be prepared to 50 or 55 degrees. The root gap between 2 and 6 millimeters. Note that the root face may be prepared between 0 and 2 millimeters. Welding is done from both sides. The next example is called a single V-groove. Both edges are beveled, and when fitted up will produce a combined angle known as the included angle. The V-groove is normally used with metal sections over 4 mm and up to 12 mm. Typically, the single V-groove is prepared with an included angle of 60 degrees. The root gap is normally 2 to 3 mm, and the root faces are also set at 2 to 3 mm. The single V preparation is intended for welding on one side. A double V-groove would most likely be prepared when joining metal that is between 20 and 38 mm thick. Included groove angle, root gap, and root face are the same as for the single V preparation. This preparation is intended for welding on both sides. Next we see a single U-groove. This preparation can be used on metal sections between 20 and 38 mm. An included groove angle of 20 degrees is required. Both the root gap and the root faces should be between 2 and 3 mm, and a radius of 6 to 10 mm is effected in the U. Welding is done on one side only. When welding thicker material, then a double U-groove is prepared. The included groove angle is again 20 degrees. The root gap, 3 mm. The root faces should be between 2 and 3 mm, and the radius is between 6 and 10 mm. Welding is done from both sides. Lastly, we will look at the J-groove preparations. This is a single J, which, when used, is made on metal sections up to 40 mm. The included groove angle is 20 degrees. The root gap is set to 3 mm. Root faces of 2 to 3 mm must be provided, and a radius of between 6 and 10 mm is given. Welding is done on one side only. A double J-groove is also used for metal sections up to 40 mm, but used when full penetration is required on both sides. In a double J profile, the included groove angle may range from 15 up to 25 degrees. Both root gap and root faces remain constant at between 2 to 3 mm. However, the radius may increase to between 10 and 12 mm. The shape of a groove profile for any given joint is usually dictated by metal thickness, metal type, accessibility, and other factors. It is the shape or profile of a groove that largely influences the strength of a weld. Groove profiles are prepared using a variety of methods such as grinding, oxy-fuel cutting, and machining. Other terminology that we need to discuss before concluding this section is root penetration and joint penetration. To explain these terms, we will use a single V-groove preparation. Once welding has been done, root penetration is given as the depth to which the weld has penetrated the joint root. Joint penetration is given as the full depth that a weld extends from its face into a joint, excluding the reinforcement. Understanding basic welding terminology and joint geometry will assist you, the welder, in reading and understanding welding procedure specifications and plays an important role when testing and diagnosing faults in welds.